Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order a special meeting of the Town Commission for Monday, October 5th, 2015. With that, I'll invite the audience to join the Commission in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk will kindly call the roll this evening.
Yes, sir. I'll be happy to call the roll. As I call your name, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Workman.
Present.
Vice Mayor Twoson.
Here.
Commissioner Kentucky.
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Here.
Commissioner Durrell.
Here.
We also have our town manager, our town attorney, and the town clerk present.
Well, thank you, Yvonne. Commission's been provided an agenda for this evening. I'll entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded. Any further comments? Hearing none. All in favor, reply by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Before we move into miscellaneous business 3A, I wanted to give Commissioner Sullivan the opportunity to make a statement. Commissioner Sullivan.
Thank you. Okay, to the mayor, the vice mayor, and the commissioners, it is with sincere regret that I tender my resignation from the town commission, effective at the adjournment of the October 19th, 2015 town commission meeting. At this time, it is imperative that I make my health my first priority, and have been advised by my doctors that this will be in my best interest. Unfortunately, I will not be able to complete the remaining 5 months of my term. It has been an honor and a privilege to have been elected to serve the town for this many years. And I know I've got one person in particular I'd like to see take my position. Can I bring that up?
Sure.
Okay. I've asked Rick Ziegler if he would handle my position for the next 5 months until the election comes up. I think Rick would be excellent in my position because he's been in with the town government for, I don't know, a good 6 years or so. So with that, that's my thanks for having me for 12 years, right around there. Something like that.
Well, Commissioner, we'll certainly have the opportunity to do that again at the October meeting.
Yeah, next month I'll be here.
You'll be here, if you will. But certainly, we want you to focus on yourself first and your health. But know that we're all here to support you, and we support the decision. Be sad to see you step down, but you come first and foremost. And it's been an honor and a privilege, and great to serve once again with you on the commission. So I know I'll probably have some more thought through words to share at the next meeting, but completely understand and support your decision.
Who knows, we'll be working again
Might be.
in a couple of years.
There you go. There you go. Yes, sir.
If I can, I will.
Okay.
Enjoyable.
It is.
It is. Thank you.
So the topic of filling Commissioner Sullivan's seat, the vacancy, obviously by charter, the commission is vested with the authority to appoint someone to complete his term. So that will be something that will surely be on the agenda for the October meeting for the commission to take up at that time. So stay tuned for that. Staff will brief you accordingly. Obviously, Commissioner Sullivan has made his request as to who he would like to see fill his seat. So that's a decision of the whole that will be taken up at that time. Okay? Okay, great. All right, moving through the agenda, miscellaneous business, agenda 3A, consideration of playground turf. Commissioner Capepi, did you want to lead with this?
It had come to my attention just recently, and time is of the essence if we choose to move forward, that there's a possibility of a donor that would donate what's called synthetic turf through the Synthetic Turf Institute. It's Synthetic Turf International, and I guess everybody's got a copy of that up here. That there may be an opportunity to get a donation for the kids' park. And so I felt that it was important that whenever we had a meeting, as soon as possible, to see if you all were in agreement with me to draft a letter to what's called, his name is Andrew Hunt, and he is with the First Tee, it's called the First Tee of the Treasure Coast. It's a nonprofit organization to help children, especially people with disabilities. And so Andrew is part of the Alcoa family of folks that are very loving and have decided to give back to their community. And so it has come to my attention that we could possibly get this donation for the kids' park to emulate the park that is located in Riviera Beach with the same type of synthetic turf. Now, I'm the engineer for the town of Ocean Ridge, and I was asked to review this product to give approval for a big piece of property, a big development in Ocean Ridge. And at first I was very negative about it because I think of my grandfather's AstroTurf. But the product itself has come a long way. And in fact, on a drainage standpoint, it is more pervious than sod. Secondly, it does not require any irrigation, so it's a benefit to our water resources. And lastly, I've talked to our public works department over the years, and our kids' park is definitely underutilized. It's underutilized because of the sun factor, and it's underutilized because of the sand, and it takes a tremendous amount of maintenance of our public works department to keep that sand free of weeds and debris and those little stickers that come from the bushes along the berm that we are not allowed to touch. So with all of those reasons, when I heard that there could be a possibility of this organization donating some of this material, I wanted to be able to jump on it right away. And I motioned that the town, through the mayor and staff, draft a letter of request that this organization see if they have any funding for providing turf on the playground here in Palm Beach Shores.
I'll second that motion.
First motion.
Yes.
Yeah, motion and seconded. Any further comments? Commissioner Durrell.
Yeah, I've seen the product at school playgrounds. It's excellent, and I think it requires some fill underneath for drainage, like rubber or sand. And where the manufacturer probably or might not donate the labor to put this in, I think with a crowd of this size, we could all spread some dirt and some rubber underneath for free and take advantage of a manufacturer donation.
It's not that big an area that you're doing, is it?
No, it's just a playground. It was just a playground, so I mean, we can make the request and see what we get back. But you can't hit the ball unless you swing the bat. So I just didn't want this to wait, because I know that there's other people that are going to stand right behind us that want to make the same request. So,
Lisa, I remember when I was growing up, it was new, this AstroTurf, you know, and they were thinking of putting it on all the little football fields, the soccer fields that we use. But they ended up, one town did it, but we didn't. And the reason we didn't was because there were too many birds that would fly in from all over the place. And those darn birds would stick like right on this stuff here. So we'd be out there playing soccer on that field, and if you fell down, you know, you could get 10 or 12 of those burrs, just do a number on your arm. So our school never went ahead and did it. We left it as just grass. I don't know if they have that problem anymore.
I don't know, we can ask.
That's going back a long time.
Yeah,
But you can check on it anyway.
okay.
Good. And just a reminder to the commission to speak as closely to the mic as possible.
Yes.
Give me hell in my mouth tonight.
Vice Mayor, and then we'll take questions from the audience.
Right, so I have a little girl that I take up to the Riviera Beach playground all the time because she doesn't want to play in the sand over there, and it would be wonderful to be able to have her here. And there's a number of kids here in town that would I think take advantage of it more if we had this. We want to, of course, look at the details and make sure that we have the proper installation and that there's no strings attached to it that we find are a problem. But I think we need to write the letter before we can start that investigation, so I would support this.
Great.
Michelle?
I think it's a great idea. I guess my question would be, are there any long-term safety concerns with having artificial surface on the playground? Are there long-term health concerns that could involve children? I just read an article or saw a news report about something where people refused to take their children to a certain park, and I believe it was up north somewhere, because there were potential health concerns.
Right.
That would be my only question.
Well, there's specifications with the Synthetic Turf Institute that we can make sure that they follow the Synthetic Turf Institute's specifications, and I know that this company does. The playground in Riviera Beach has been there for how long? 10 years probably? Maybe not that long. But it's identical to it's the same company that that is in the Riviera Beach playground. So
Is it fenced in, Lisa?
is it fenced in?
Will the whole thing be fenced in?
I don't think so.
Animals
It doesn't.
can't get in?
I don't think it needs to be. The one in Riviera Beach is not fenced in.
We don't have trouble with dog deposits, and wild animal deposits.
You can wash it right through.
Yeah.
Drains.
As long as someone washes it.
This is Sylvester.
I was interested in coming tonight about that item. I have 4 great-grandchildren who love the sand, and I wanted to know whether there had been any requests for something like this. I think what she's talking about is in Riviera Beach, it's old enough, there's a black rubber particles in the false grass that is carcinogenic. And that probably is not in the new stuff, but it's sand, you know, and to me, sand is at the beach, so that's why I'm surprised that there was anything else, but I can be educated, so I can be convinced.
Thank you.
So I just maybe help clarify a little bit. Over the years, that turf has really changed. The time Tom was talking about the AstroTurf, that was over a hard surface. I played on those fields as well when I was younger. It was basically a cement covered with an AstroTurf. Now what they're doing, the fields are basically field turfs that professional athletes play on, high schools, colleges. It's really, it's artificial grass with a rubber base, rubber pellets. Sometimes if you see the kids fall and the players fall and see the black dots coming up, that's a non-carcinogenic fill. And it's a sand base for drainage, and they can take up to like 2 feet of water before they start to fill up. So I think we're very safe, and I think if you have respect, you'll see that.
Thank you for the comment. Certainly we'll do our due diligence in researching that. I do know a number of schools in the area utilize this material for existing playgrounds and what have you. So, but we'll certainly double check and research any of those concerns before moving forward. Any other questions before we take a vote? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion before us, reply by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner Trippi. Agenda item 3B, discussion building department services. Cindy.
Yes, as you recall, we briefly touched on this when we were doing the budget, and what we are requesting tonight is that the commission consider giving staff the ability to notify our current building official that we are going to go out for an RFQ to change building department services. The reason for this is numerous instances where we have found ourselves really on a different page and going in different directions than the building official. Staff has had that problem. We have had the problem even with me and with the mayor. Mostly it came to light as well when we were going through the special magistrate and code enforcement issues, that it just really became apparent that priorities are not the same and the responsiveness has not been at all the same. So this isn't a last minute thought. The mayor and myself and staff have been talking about this for really about 6 months at least. But we wanted to give every opportunity to try to work with what we had. But I am before you tonight to really get some input from you and see if I can get authorization from the commission to speak with our building official and move forward with an RFQ process. Of course, he would have the opportunity to also go through that process as well.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion on the subject. Commissioner Durrell.
I move to put out an RFQ for the building department services.
It's been motioned. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motioned and seconded. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor, reply by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Moving to agenda item 3C, Ocean Avenue drainage update. Cindy.
Yes, we have James Barton with us tonight, and I'd like him to really clarify some of the things that have come up, but in general, really in a synopsis, as you remember, we budgeted $150,000 for the project. The commission has approved the plans for the project. And it's my understanding that James had come up with that figure just on information that he had and based on Lee Cullum's report from quite some time ago. But when he did put it out to get some data, he came up with very different figures. Came up with a project that would either be $225,000 to $350,000. And a lot of that has to do with the site, the trees that are on the site and things like that. What I'd like to do is just get him to give a few bullet points as to why, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about the funding and some possibilities and recommendations.
Thank you very much.
Before you begin,
I have to get off the dice.
you need to announce you have a vote.
I have a voting conflict and have to get off the dice.
James Barton, I'm very happy to be able to present to you. Sorry the news isn't better, so We went out to some contractors to get some preliminary cost estimates with the purpose of seeing if there was existing continuing services contracts that certain contractors had for other cities that could provide this service. Because a lot of contractors are on call, City West Palm Beach, Wellington, Palm Beach County, other counties. And we showed them the plans and they came back with cost estimates that were higher than we were expecting. So the original cost estimates were based on past reporting, but we also did our own analysis, and maybe we're just a bit too optimistic, but the new estimates are coming between 250 to 300,000. Now, the reasons for the higher pricing than we were expecting is, well, we understand it's a large pipe, that the dewatering required to put the pipe in the ground. It causes very difficult conditions. The contractors have they're very risky about the restoration requirements, worried about it taking up the whole road, or even if you go a couple of feet past the middle of the road, you'd have to take up the whole road. The trees cannot be saved. They're too close to the existing pipe. They're basically planted on top of the existing pipe, and to take out the pipe, we'd have to take out the root balls, and we don't think that they would be saved. Even though it's a small job, some of the costs to do the job are fixed. Like, you have really big pipe coming to site, and the equipment to bring that pipe is the same cost to get that pipe there, whether it's 500 feet of pipe or 5,000 feet of pipe. You still have to get the big machines there, so the upfront costs are there. On the positive side, this was not done in a competitive bidding process, so that the estimates of 250 to 300, again being optimistic, may be on the very conservative side from the contractors. So it may come in a little bit better under the bidding process. But the bidding climate right now for contractors isn't very competitive. It's not huge because maybe 4 years ago, there was no work going on, and all the contractors downsized, and they were really scratching for work, and they would really do things cheap, and just to stay in business. But now, there's been a lot of work coming into the market for contractors, and they have not yet increased their capacity to do additional stuff. So it's not a very competitive bidding environment. However, we would get bids. The contractors did come back with some recommendations on how to save costs. One would be to reduce the scope of the project. So right now we have 3 sections of pipe we're replacing. 2 are 24-inch pipe, and the last one is a 30-inch pipe. And the reason we did the last 30-inch is because of the modeling proved that 30-inch pipe would be beneficial. If we reduce that and only take out the 24-inch pipe for right now, that would reduce some of the costs. It would reduce the number of trees. It would reduce that we have to remove. It would reduce some of the restoration. There's a brick paver driveway that's also over top of the pipe that we would not have to go near. So that would be positive. They gave us some recommendations on how to adjust our design, although it's very limited what we can do because we have the trees and the sidewalk on one side, we have the roadway, and then we have the sewer line. So we can't go too close to the sewer, but we can try and push away from the trees a little bit. That said, we had recommended that we do a elliptical pipe, which is a bit bigger than, it's the same area and the same flow conditions as the 42-inch round, but they thought the 42-inch round is easier to install, so there'd be, and we had the 42 inch as a bid alternate to see what the difference would be, but putting it out with a 42 would come up with with a better risk factor for the contractor, so that would be better for us. If we are able to explain to them that our depths would be flexible so they could get around any sewer conflicts that we might find. And again, pushing out to the road, but we still have to be aware of the sewer. But the reality is that it's a very small project with a big overhead cost due to the size of the pipe and the size of equipment needed to do that. So that's fixed mobilization costs. That's the reasons why, and some of the options we can do to kind of carve away at that. So we can take a look at other options perhaps, or one other option is to is to maybe look for grant opportunities to cover that, or I'll let the town manager.
How certain are you, Lee, regarding the viability of the royal ponds? I mean, is there an inkling of hope that they could be pulled and replaced?
The contractor is going to put a cost on that to replace them anyway, because they don't think they'll survive. Even if they were able to hold them up during construction and dig underneath them, the concern is that they have to warranty the trees for a year, and they would not guarantee, they're not arborists necessarily, they're pipe installers. So the less risky option is to remove and replace them. And they're pretty expensive, they're pretty big trees.
You really have to replace them, you couldn't just like push them back 3 feet. Like replant them.
Use your
3
mic.
feet back.
Yeah,
You do that.
well, we could, yeah, taking a look at some options like that, but I don't think I think the contractors would rather just replace them with a new tree. We could take a look at replacing them with smaller trees that'll eventually grow. But the trees are an issue, and it's something that we may want to talk about, how do we reduce the risk of the trees.
Well, it's the beauty of the road also. You know, when they're gone, they're gone. If you put in these little small trees, it's gonna look pretty bad. So that'll be something to really think about.
Yeah, I've done similar projects where we've replaced trees that size, and they're still there and they look great, and we push them back. Right now, there's a conflict with the sidewalk, and then there's a wall behind the sidewalk, so there's not a lot of room.
Commissioner Durrell.
The scope of work here, I can't remember, I see the maps is from where to where. I have the map here showing like catch basin 26 at Edwards Lane.
Correct.
That's the start of it.
Yes.
And then we're going south to catch basin 13 at Lovato.
Correct. So we just go to Tacoma.
But the initial scope needs to be all the way to 13.
Yes.
So you're going between Tacoma
Starting at Edwards, all right, south to Lovato.
We're actually, right now we're going to close to Claremont. Is the next piece. There's a structure in there.
You're going like this.
So we would go back from Edwards to Tacoma. It's just the 24-inch pipe. There's one option.
Okay, so
Tacoma or is it Claremont?
Tacoma.
so the shorter thing is, it's like 300 feet.
Yes.
Okay, so it's 300 linear feet. Say it's $300,000, just to get a feel for it.
Yeah, it would be less if right now there's 360 feet, but yeah, it's pretty expensive for the job that it is, which is what surprised us, but.
$1,000 a foot, right? Yeah. 300 to 300,000.
Yes.
That sounds really high. I mean,
Yes.
and it's probably because of those trees. There's $5,000 per royal palm, and they're every 20 feet, maybe.
Right now there's 8 of them.
8 of them. So
And
that's
they would be $4,000 to $5,000 to remove and replace.
each.
That's nice.
Yes.
No bid. You start bidding, things go down.
Correct. So if we did it in a bidding environment, we'd get better prices, but we wanted to be
Away from that.
well, we want to just make sure that we're aware that it's going to exceed the initial quote that we discussed. And when we go to bid, then we'll know the actual number from the bidding environment. But right now, that's where we just wanted to kind of get direction as to if we want to try to do it, we can make the bid alternate, that we reduce the scope. But the more risk we have, the more cost to the project, the more the contractors are going to be adverse to risk. So,
How much, like you say, how much of a problem do we have between Edwards and, let's say, going north to Cascade, Blossom, Sandal? Do we have a big problem there with the drainage? Or is it mainly from Edwards down?
the issues with the stormwater are Edwards north. because all the water gets stuck into the 24-inch pipe. So the idea is to open up that 24-inch pipe to let the water go, because right now it's like a bathtub.
I'm just curious if we couldn't go above Edwards and make it a bigger diameter up there. Then let's say 30 inches. 30 inches could be the whole length of the problemed area.
Right now, north of Edwards is 42-inch, so it's a large pipe, and we'd like to match that to make it consistent
It's
through.
42 inch.
Yeah, north of
And
Edwards.
is it in good shape?
Yes.
So if that was 42, why wouldn't we just think of going 42 down below?
Well, that's what we're doing. That's
Okay,
the
you're not
intent.
thinking the 30s. Okay.
We're going to replace everything with 42, and because of the overall cost of doing the entire street, because right now it goes from a 42, 24, 30, 36, 42. So it goes from a 42 to a small pipe and back up to a 42 eventually. The intent eventually will be to replace that all with 42-inch pipe. Now, there is a cost savings for doing the whole entire project, because you do it in two small little pieces. You get a lot of upfront costs, but Vice Mayor.
It seems like the huge pipe is the problem. Would there be a possibility to put a second small pipe next to it, so between the two of them, they're carrying the amount of water, and it would be less destructive in order to put the second one either one next to each other, or somehow connect them up at either end, so it wouldn't.
Right. Okay, so when you're putting, there's a couple of conditions we have to meet. We have to have a certain number of coverage over the pipe. So when trucks drive over it, typically we want 3 foot of cover over the pipe. So if we replace the 42-inch with 2 smaller pipes, okay, we'd have to have the same.
Well, you'd add another 24 to the 24 that's already there. Or something
We'd still,
like
yeah,
this.
we'd still have a flow condition because the diameter is pi r squared, right? It's the diameter squared, so that determines the area. And in simplistic, area determines the flow. So we would need 4 24-inch pipes to have the same flow rate as a 42-inch pipe. So then, even putting in a 30-inch, which would be less restoration, to put 2 next to each other is much wider. And we're not so much worried about the 42 because we can put it deep and have a little bit of cave in. We're trying to be adverse to doing 2 pipes next to each other, which would add to the restoration. And most of the costs are restoration costs that are driving this up.
Right. And it's your opinion that changing out this 24-inch pipe would make a difference in the drainage
Yes.
of this?
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to go 42.
We'd be going to a 42.
42. Yeah.
So
18 inches difference.
Right, so the reason we're staying with that section is due to the budget. It would be nice to be able to do the whole thing. Not that, the budget isn't there right now. And so speaking of budgets, it's looking for grants would delay the project because grants will take a while. But it's a really good project for a grant because it's an obvious, remember when we talked about how we got through permitting? They wanted to put some parameters in front of us for permitting, but it was such an obvious bottleneck that they let us do what we were doing. And I think the grant people would have the same opinion that it's such an obvious fix to a problem. But that said,
How about later on, like if we're going down to, we're going to go down to Claremont. Okay, so you're going to change the pipe from.
eventually we'll be changing it all the way down to.
So when does
all this right down to about 40.
So this will be the next project.
It would be right now, we're 3 projects. Well, that's what we anticipate.
Couldn't do them all at once.
With the budget, we could.
Commissioner Durrell?
So the preliminary numbers is for what scope? Is it for, when I scaled out 800 feet?
No, it's for 360 feet.
360 feet. Okay, so that would get us, so number, catch basin 22, just south of Tacoma. So 360 feet is the $225,000, $300,000 number.
Correct.
Question.
Well, as soon as, any other questions from the commission?
Well, I think that we need to have actual bids before we can make a decision about this. And so I would move that we authorize staff and the engineer to move forward with getting bids on the plans so we can have better concrete information to work with.
As proposed on the whole, right?
Yes.
It's been motioned, is there a second?
I'll second that. There's a lot to talk about here. Something we're not thinking of right now would come out in a report.
Yeah, but James brought this before us, obviously, because the initial cost estimates were greater than anticipated. So they were, staff and James were looking for direction. So we're giving that to them tonight. Obviously, not making final long-term decisions on the project. So we just need to provide that general direction, Commissioner Durrell.
Can we put out for bid and then decide not to award to anyone?
Yes.
Okay. I hate to make a lot of effort caused on the bidders if there is no real project.
No, but standard language in all of our bid documents, and really just about any bid document, is that the town will reserve the right to reject all bids, not award the contract at all, start over, do nothing. So that will be very clear in our bid documents.
So actually, that gave me an interesting perspective in that if we do a bid alternate, so we do the 24 inches, the 2 sticks of pipe, and we'll do the bid alternate for the last one. And that way we'll know the cost to do the minimum, and we'll know the cost to do the full project. And if the bidding environment is competitive and things come in under, then we can make a better decision based on that, and then we can still get 3 sticks in for us.
Would you ever joining those two? We had 2 pipes coming out. Would you ever be adjoining them before they get to the inlet or the ocean?
Yeah, well, so how you join 2 pipes is you just put a big box in the ground with 2 pipes coming into it, and then they would just mix in there and then flow out.
Okay. You wouldn't have any ugly 2 pipes hanging out somewhere.
No, and we're not touching the 42-inch at the outfall at all. That's off the table.
That's cool.
Shelley, you have the first public question.
So if this is along Ocean Avenue, it's going to have a direct impact on traffic to the Marriott.
You know what I probably need to do? You probably need to speak into the mic because we have people on the phone that have called in and they can't hear public questions. In order to maintain that go-to meeting, you've got to have a mic. I'm sorry.
Okay, so my question is this. If this is along Ocean Avenue, it's going to have a direct impact on traffic to the Marriott. Has any of this been discussed with Marriott? Have we discussed the idea of contribution to the cost to help this take place?
Private dollars being contributed towards?
Why not?
I haven't. Anyone have an interest in that? I wouldn't see that as a charitable cause necessarily, but that's certainly something that could be done.
They've got plenty of money.
True.
Marriott.
I guess they do. I don't know what their books are.
I'm just saying it's an idea that if the budget that was originally put forth is now twice as much, why not look for alternate ways to subsidize this? I agree with the bidding process, I have no problem with that. But it can't hurt to discuss this with the powers that be at the vacation club. Because it's going to directly impact how the traffic affects entrance and egress from their facility. During construction and or if we don't have construction, during the flooding.
Well, they're not necessarily impacted as intensely as properties to the north of Edwards are by the flooding. So there's not necessarily motivation, meaning South Mayan floods and cars are filled with water and the lobby's filled with water. Sea spray has serious issues there, but the Marriott does not. So they're probably not motivated from that standpoint to contribute. And also there
And
was,
maybe they're not, but we certainly.
We should definitely discuss it.
Thank you. That's all I'm saying. Is that it can't hurt to approach it.
any other questions? Mr. Howard, you had your hand up?
I did, Your Honor. Mr. Mayor.
Can I have the mic?
It seems that our estimate was severely off. I mean, it wasn't just a nominal error, it was a gross error. If we're talking $300,000 versus $150,000. My question to the engineer would be, are we looking at revising our specifications based on what was provided us to the only the only company we've spoken to, so that we can formalize a bidding process that shows apples and apples?
Yeah, so can I? Okay, so we got these emergency contract bids or continuing services contract bids from two contractors. Both had the same concerns, and putting this out to a bidding environment will come up with hopefully better results. But then everyone will be bidding on the same job.
The next question would be, have we considered doing block bids? In other words, we're asking a contractor who is doing our underlayment for
what?
bids of palm trees. Maybe if we isolate the bidding process a little bit in their particular area of expertise, we might, better yet, get a more significant reduction in our pricing.
Thank you. Good call, Chuck. Any other,
Correct me.
gotta use the mic though, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Marriott put those palm trees in.
Yeah.
And I think it would be difficult to ask them to pay for trees again, or ask for money, really.
Yeah, they are beautiful trees. And they did pay to have those installed. Any other questions? Bill?
We've had discussion after discussion on this, and to change the concept that we need a smaller pipe, I think would be a disaster. I mean, we should have 42 inches at least all the way through and 72 into the water. We know some of those things can't be done legally, but to downsize, I think we're wasting our money. We need to do it, figure out how to do it.
Okay, so the plan isn't then to downsize the pipe. We're still maintaining the same diameter of pipe. We would just maybe have to do the full project in smaller sections, but the diameter of pipe is still the same.
Okay.
42 inch. 42 inch. We're replacing with a 42-inch pipe.
All right, good. Cindy's going to give a brief financial overview as it relates to the project and the added expenses for the commission to consider as we move forward tonight.
Yes, as we looked at this, and James and I did discuss the possibility of breaking it down into separate segments, but what happens when you do that is you have mobilization fees twice, you have the inconvenience of the project, and two different times. And so what I did do is I moved forward and looked at the capital budget for this year under the streets department. And we do have an additional, I guess, $140,000, and that is for the repaving and regrading of Inlet Way. So the commission could potentially put that project off. I know the mayor and I have talked about the utility fees and how they may come in later in the year, and maybe that would start funding that project. You know, we have talked about this a lot, and I know that when it was approved with a caveat that we really wanted to move forward sooner than later on this project. I also did look at the fund balance to see if there was funds in the fund balance that we could use and still keep us where we want to be. And I've supplied the commission with a sheet that breaks that down, and if you'll see at the bottom what I put in there, and I looked at worst case scenario, I looked at the $350,000 project. We could pull additional funds of $200,000 from the fund balance if necessary, and it would still keep us at $1.1 million, and that would still be 27% of our fund balance. So those would be two separate options that we could look at, and or maybe, you know, move into this project and look at where we are with the other project closer to the end of the year. But I think that if we look at it, it's my recommendation that we don't break this project up. I think it would create much more hardship in a lot of different ways. So I would recommend that we look at doing this project and going one of several different ways. Obviously, after we go through the bid process in hopes that the bids come in lower. But that does give you some ideas of how it can be funded.
Good. Thank you,
Got a
Cindy.
question, Bob?
General.
There was a time when we were coordinating this with Riviera Beach because they were going to put a water line in. Why can't we approach Riviera Beach and try to get the time frame that it could maybe split the cost of the digging or whatever? That's all I have to say.
You want to go ahead and respond to that, James, or I can chime into that?
Thank you very much. So we approached Riviera Beach about this project, and they had previously relocated their water line along Ocean Avenue, where our project is going to be, to the other side of the road. So they don't have any water lines in conflict. There is one small line that is clamped inside the drainage structure, which we would have to clamp and go back. So there's no real input from Riviera Beach on this particular section of roadway. Now, that said, in every other section of roadway almost, there is certainly water, and that's a different subject, and how they want to move forward. But on this project, we looked at that, and actually we got a positive response from them to do some replacement of stuff and help with the restoration. However, when we started those locations, they did not at all conflict with where we're working.
Thank you. All right. Yes, ma'am.
I had a question because I heard this gentleman recommend that this would be a good project to consider the grant process. And I'm wondering why that hasn't been brought up for further discussion, what the timeline with that would be. And obviously this is not a new problem to the town. So what would be the time that would be needed for the grant process, and would that have a negative impact on, you know, the issue, since it's not a new problem, it's been something we've had for many, many years?
We have looked at the grants, and the biggest concern would be the timeline. When we first started looking at this, we had, you know, you have deadlines, and then
What is the timeline?
there's so many different grants out there. I'd have to kind of get through all of them, but the problem is it's not only the timeline of that, it's the timeline of then they're awarding the grant, and when we move forward with this section, it was a desire to get it moving forward quicker, and then we would look at the other elements and the other sections of the project and move forward with plans.
The latest iteration of grant funding available would be the legislative funds, which would be due, the application would be due in November, and then it's a 6-month award time. And then we're not guaranteed an award, but that's still taking us into next year. And then there's other grants, and you know, the recommendation is to start looking at grants and start going after them very rigorously, because there is now, whereas 3 years ago there was no money available, now there's becoming money available, and it's a very good opportunity to get. We have some very good projects that grants people really like to look at. And so it'd be something that we'd like to move forward on.
The grant process, would the grant process require formal bids to apply, or just a general budget
The grants, so different grants require different levels of application. Some of the grants, and most of the grants would be satisfied with almost a level of, well, certainly with the level of design for Ocean Avenue, but moving forward with the level of design we can do with basic layouts, using GIS for exhibits and putting cost estimates behind that. For most of the grants, that's sufficient. Other grants want shovel ready. But those, you know, all the grants that were happening several years ago were shovel ready grants, but those are mostly larger organizations, very large projects. But we're in a good position to get grant money for the types of interventions that we would be doing moving forward with the level of effort that we've already put forth.
What's your thought process on that, Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, I just have a question for you. Is if you look at this map that you've given us, I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. If you look at this map that you've given us, you and I have been playing with this thing. We're going from Edwards on down to like Claremont, okay, with 42 inches in width of yours.
Correct, the 42-inch round pipe.
It's just be one pipe or two?
One pipe.
Okay, so then you're stopping right at Claremont.
Correct.
Now you still got 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks.
Correct.
To go to get, and that part is going to be 24 inches right now?
No, right now, the first part of that, the remainder is 30, and then the bulk of it is a 36.
All right, so you got 30 and 36
Correct.
right here. Wouldn't it be better to go ahead, since we're already digging up and putting in the 42, just go ahead and do those last 4 blocks at the same time and make them all 42s?
If we have the budget, yes.
Budget, John. It would just be good to be able to get the whole project done at one time. If they're ripping everything up.
Have you the total cost?
Well, originally we thought the total cost would be about 900 to $1 million. You know, with these prices coming in, we can do a reanalysis of that, but certainly it wouldn't be less than $900,000.
Would not be less than 900,000.
I think, right? Didn't we? I think that's the number. Now,
Something we should even consider, John, or should we put that off on the side?
And your time frame for the grants would be a November application period with 6 months?
the next one, but there's right now we've identified 4 upcoming grants. But the first one's due in November. The next ones will be due early next year. Some of them are just revolving.
Is the November deadline obtainable with the work and information we have so far?
Yes.
All right. We have a motion before us? You do. We do, right? Based on that conversation, do you want to continue that motion or do you want to revise it any? Obviously, there's a timeline issue here. You never know when the next flooding event's going to occur, the loss of property and, you know, safety and what have you. Obviously, it's a big ticket item for the town to do it right. It's 900,000 plus to maybe do a portion of the project, even if it costs more down the road, but potentially half of this project may solve 85% of the issues in town, and we may not need to go all the way to the $1 million threshold. So there is some rhyme and reason to doing it in segments, because that first phase may solve the majority of the issues. I certainly think, obviously, we need to pause and ponder grant money. Obviously, though, that delays the project starting and then exposes the town to future unforeseen floods. So I'm sensitive to the residents of the town and those that live on Ocean Avenue and future flooding, in an effort not to delay the project any further, but I'm also sensitive to the pocketbook as well.
James, the grant writing, I know that you have someone that does that with your firm. What type of fee would be associated with the grant?
We provided a proposal previously, I think it was $7,500 to do 4, right, 4, something like that. If you just wanted to go after one, I could go back and get pricing on that. But we had a proposal, so under $10,000, we could get the whole year of grants taken care of. And then you're looking at, the first grant is actually a legislative grant, and so, and it's Ryan Ruskey who, all he does is grants, and it's a legislative grant, so really what we have to do is talk to our legislators and get them to put that in the agenda. And so it's not such a technical grant. But R1D1 funding, that's what they do, and that's what they would help us through the process. So we can certainly, moving forward with grants, go over in much more detail every grant that we can go after. But we have information necessary to go after a lot of stuff right now.
Thank you. Any other comments from the dais?
Well, I think it's important that we continue on with getting the bids on this project and get a better idea of what it's actually going to cost. And I think we have a number of other ideas for dealing with drainage and flooding in town. You know, if you look at what happened at Lake over the last 2 weeks, there's obviously lots of things that we have to deal with, and those would lend themselves to grants. So I would say that we run parallel, that we continue on this with the money and then look at grants for other drainage issues in town, and perhaps doing the next phase if this one doesn't solve the problem. We have the money to do it. It's important to do it. I think we should continue on.
Are you talking about continuing the one project we have going?
Yes, the project as it's been presented.
Right, but you want to add to it, and so we do it all at the same time?
No, not at this point.
No?
No.
Okay.
No, because
we don't have $900,000, and I think we don't know that we need to do the whole thing. So I think we should continue on with what's been proposed.
Okay.
Fine.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further comments? Mr. Durrell.
I just think it is a good idea to get separate bids on landscaping, planting. It's good to know.
Sure, and I will amend that we should get separate bids on landscaping and any other pieces that naturally would lend themselves to having separate subcontractors.
Okay, the motion's been amended. Is it seconded as amended? Motioned and seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, reply by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Hopefully we come back with better news.
Thank you, James. Please do.
Moving forward, miscellaneous business 3D, town manager employment agreement. The Commission's been provided with a successor employment agreement for the town manager. After lengthy discussions between myself and Cindy over the last couple of weeks, months, and conversations I know Cindy has, I'm sure, had with the commission, we've decided to enter a mutually agreed upon course of action, looking forward to the future, looking to our town, as we all strive to make this the best little town in Florida, and we truly all have that intent. So we have before us a successor employment agreement that would make effective Cindy's last date of employment with the town, January 1st, 2016. The adoption of this successor employment agreement would make null and void the existing agreement between Cindy and the town, and obviously clarify her mutually agreed upon separation. So with that, I'll entertain a motion accordingly.
Well, I'll move to accept the new employment agreement with Cindy and to nullify the existing agreement.
I'll second that.
Been motioned and seconded. Any further comment from the dais, and then as we've done throughout the whole evening, everyone will have an opportunity to ask questions. The agreement makes effective Cindy's last day, January 1st, 2016, providing the town ample opportunity for her to help guide the town through the future hiring process for a replacement, also tidy up projects that she currently has on her desk. Obviously allow the town and the commission the opportunity at a later time to express and communicate our appreciation to her. That's not obviously for tonight. But this agreement makes that date January 1st, 2016, her final date with the town, and grants a severance package of 3 months as was previously stipulated in her termination agreement. Any questions from the dais?
I would like our town attorney to explain to all of us whether, for one, you were involved in this, whether other people that were involved in this on the legal side, and whether this meets muster, whether the Inspector General's rules in Palm Beach County apply, and we're not in any kind of trouble. So if you can opine on that, I'd appreciate it.
All right, sure, in no particular order. I worked with the town's labor and employment attorney and worked on preparing the document that's before you at his suggestion as a way to memorialize the wrapping up of the town manager's service with the town. The document essentially provides, as the mayor said, employment through January 1st at the town manager's current salary. Specifically charges the town manager with working with the town on a succession plan to bring in a new manager, going through the proposal process, assisting with the interview process, and hopefully bringing qualified candidates before the town commission for your ultimate consideration. As was contained in the agreement that's currently in force, provides for an identical severance package of 3 months salary, which is well within the state statutory limits. State statute adopted 4 or 5 years ago caps any severance per contract at 20 weeks. So this is at about 12 weeks. So we are well within statutory limits. In terms of Inspector General issues, which really deal with fiscal management and that sort of thing, this document provides similar compensation as the existing agreement. So I don't see, from an Inspector General or legal standpoint, that the town would be exposed to any issues in terms of an Inspector General investigation or report or red mark, so to speak. Miss anything?
So you work with our labor attorney?
Mr. Sampo is the town's labor and employment attorney. We spoke and we worked on this document. He is in favor of proceeding this way. In my opinion, the document is legally sufficient to protect the town in terms of ensuring cooperation of the manager for the succession plan. So those are the things that it purports to accomplish, and I believe it does.
All right.
Any other questions? I had none. Thanks, Mayor.
First of all, it saddens me to have to be in this position. People feel that they have to leave here for the good of the town. It's really unfortunate. And especially when they've been a loyal and capable employee here for so long and have done so much for all of us, every single person sitting in this room. And to have to negotiate this in public is really a horrific experience. I hope none of you have to have anything like this happen to you ever. That being said, I know that some people are concerned about the 3-month severance package, but the 3-month severance would be what we would be giving her if we were firing her for cause, if she had done something terrible and we were forcing her out. And here, we're not forcing her out. She's done a good job. It's a mutually agreeable separation. So I see no reason why we shouldn't honor the 3 months and give it to her. The other thing I'd like to say is Keith was talking about her helping with the process. In no way is Cindy going to be the person who picks her successor. That will be the commission who does that. But there is help that we would need in order to run the process, to put the ad out, to help us with the agreement, screening people, and coming up with relevant questions for us that I think would be really helpful. And if she stays for the 3 months, which this severance package allows us to, then I think that will be a valuable help to those of us on the commission and the mayor, and help us pick the very best possible replacement for her. So I believe that this is the right thing to do.
All right, questions, Jim?
So does the 3 months include October, November?
You got to ask the question in the mic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we are. It's in the budget. We've already approved the new sound system with the cordless mics and all that. So
Can we fix this?
My question is, does the 3 months, is that including October, November, and December, or does it include January, February, and March?
Cindy will remain employed as our town manager every single day of the working week through January 1st, 2016. She will be on the job.
Right.
Unless she's sick or ill or something to that effect. And upon her last day of service is when she will then get her 3-month severance pay to allow for the transition for her.
Well, I was always under understanding she was going to quit and wanted a 3-month severance.
As I said, this has been based on weeks and some time of discussion between myself and Cindy.
That's all.
And moving forward, she's not being terminated with cause. Cindy has performed admirably in her position and has been a part of this town for 14 years.
That was the way it was presented to me at first.
My experience, but just for a point of clarification, please. From the little bit I know about it, being a government employee myself, with a resignation, there's not usually severance. With a termination, there is.
Right.
You're right. What is this? You're not quite clear on what you're calling this. So is it a resignation or is it a termination? Second part of that question is, by making a special circumstance, which is what this sounds like to me, are you not setting a precedent that other employees in the future could come back and say, well, I want to leave, but I think I'll stay. I can't leave till January, I'll stay. But I also want my severance when I leave. So I think you're opening yourself up to something else there. And I don't quite understand what that change you just voted on before you discussed this. Did that change in somehow allow this decision to carry forward? The change that you made? Oh.
We haven't voted yet.
Okay, because I thought you did approve something.
Just made a motion.
Okay.
And so to answer the first part of your question, Cindy hasn't verbally or in writing communicated any intent of resignation. So this is a mutually agreed upon separation.
So it's a separation?
It's a mutually agreed upon separation. The town is voting tonight on a successor employment agreement, which states that her last day will be January 1st, and upon that last day, she will receive 3 months severance.
So it's a termination, a mutually agreed upon termination.
It's a mutually agreed upon separation. Shelley, do you have any questions?
So I feel awful being the bad guy. And first of all, I want to congratulate Cindy on her retirement. I wish I was in the same situation to be able to do that. It's been my experience.
Are you retiring,
so far.
I'm not retiring.
Not retired.
Okay, so you're leaving, okay.
Separating is the key word.
Separate, okay, and it's semantics. I have had the pleasure of working with Cindy, and each time we've met, the activities we asked to get done were done, and I was impressed with the fortitude in which you accomplished that. But I've been in business a long time, and I have separated from companies on a number of occasions, and it's never been my experience to get a severance package. And I'm really uncomfortable with the fact that this is not a dismissal. When I looked up severance on the internet, severance is for a dismissal. Doesn't say separation, doesn't say agreed upon, it says dismissal. And we just heard from the other gentleman that putting in these pipes are going to cost 3, 4, 5 times as much as we anticipated. We're facing lawsuits. We're getting our taxes raised. And please, Cindy, take no offense. No, nothing personal. But I just don't see how the town can afford a 3-month severance package.
My only response to that, respectfully, would be if there's a desire in this room for there to be blood on the floor by calling it a termination, because if there were a termination, the commission took action to terminate, the existing contract calls for a 3-month severance. So if there's a desire for blood to be on the floor, that's one thing. If not, it's a successor employment agreement and a mutually agreed upon separation. Mr. Hoffman.
It's saddening for me to listen to some of the conversation that's occurred. Cindy has served this community for a good number of years with distinction. Not everybody has agreed, but she has done a lot, and she's put up with a lot.
She has.
And for us here, after all these years of faithful service, of caring service, of going beyond what she's need to do, to be complaining about giving her a simple 3 months of severance, for me is embarrassing. We're better than that. Don't we call this place the best little town in Florida? And to be the best, I don't want to just be a little town in Florida. If we want to be the best, one of the things that it requires, and the heart of it, is not the sewer pipes, not the playground surface. It's how we deal with each other, with graciousness and caring and understanding. And I'm not hearing it. And that saddens me. And I think we're better than that. It's embarrassing to me to hear some of the things that we said. Cindy, I thank you so much for what, and I will miss you. I will miss you as a person. I will miss your caring. I will miss your spirit, and your expertise in what you've done here in this community. And it saddens me too when we as a community, I'm sorry for preaching, I'm a preacher. But let me just say this, and then I'll sit down. We owe a debt of appreciation when we see the conscientiousness of the people that are up here. The response and the comments that have been made, that is the positive ones, tonight, and the ideas, I think that's great. I appreciate our police department and what they do for us, and the fire department and what they do for us, and our maintenance people. You're right, I will speed it up, but it needs to be said, because we're hiding behind this stuff where we're becoming more and more contentious rather than what we ought to be. And either we're a little town in Florida or we're the best little town of Florida. To be the best is a different level.
Gil.
I'm not a preacher, so I'm going to be very fast.
You're president, right?
Preacher always goes 20 minutes.
In my business career, I've seen this, sorry. In my business career, I've seen this more normal than not, where a transition period is worked out by the company to make sure that it happens smoothly, positively, and the replacement is as good if possible. And so I'm not very surprised about it. I also feel like these people have jobs and they can't be interviewing. So we're hiring someone to do that job of finding the right candidate. So to me, it's not so crazy. And I think as an executive, as they are for our town, we've entrusted them to make decisions on our behalf. I think they do a pretty darn good job of it.
Mr. Hancock, you're next.
I'm not an executive, I'm not a business person, I'm a teacher. So I can use my teacher voice. Cindy, I would like to thank you because I remember when you were hired by this town, by Mayor Mills. And I remember when she got hired, I thought, what do we need her for? We've got a mayor who's full-time. He's here all the time. He's in the office all the time. But when Cindy came in, she got lights put in our town. She got grants that nobody ever thought about. She got that inlet taken care of. She's done a lot of damn good stuff for this town. And I feel like she's been witch hunted. And it makes me sick. And one of the things as teachers we do is we try to keep bullies away from the schoolyard. And I feel like this is a schoolyard, and I feel like you get bullied, and I don't like it, and it's embarrassing. You're adults and you don't act like it. And just on my behalf and my friends' behalves, who I don't want to mention, we thank you. We're going to miss you.
I hadn't thought much about it, but I guess I'm the bully. The reality is, if there was anything that I had put in writing with my name attached to it that is incorrect, in error, I'd be willing to listen to it. There were items that I did not put on that particular document because it was personal, not malicious, but it was inappropriate and it was left off. The bottom line is, we were told 4 months ago that this was a contract that was made for a sense of security for the town manager. It was in fact discussed, it was made, and even to the point that she said, the town manager had mentioned that she would defer the raise and accept that of her office. And at that point, that would make it close to, I assume, 92,000 and change. The bottom line is, 4 months later, it's elected that we renegotiate that list. And in fact, I have been in the corporate world as well. I have had 21 years in the Marine Corps, 20 years as an international and domestic operational troubleshooter. And I have never seen a contract renegotiated in the middle of the town commission. also says unaccrued vacation pay and unaccrued sick leave benefits. The fact remains, if in fact you are happy with her, then I'd say retain her until her contract expires. If in fact you're terminating for cause, then in fact do that and so state. But let's not play middle ground. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll close it to public comments. We have a motion before us and a second. Any further comments from the commission? Hearing none, all in favor, reply by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. I'll move to public comments. It's the opportunity for the audience to speak to anything that's on your mind. 3 minutes is about the average. We can extend it if need be, but I'll open it up for public comments at the podium, starting from my left to your right. Anyone wishing to make a public comment tonight? Going once, going
Can I repeat something about the playground?
You may, but at the mic.
I've been thinking more about it, and I picture the kids there. They're little, you need this? They're little kids, little. It's not a big kids playground, so when they fall off the slide, the sand is good. They're barefoot. Are they going to like that artificial stuff on their bare feet? I just want people to think about that. You'd have no vote. And you know, there are, we should kid test it. I'd be all for that, but I have seen little kids on grass and they go like this because they don't like the feel. But what I have seen there is they're tumbling in the sand. They've come from the beach, they have bare feet, and they like the sand. So that's why I'm in favor of not bothering with a more firm surface, which that would be, especially with all of this stuff underneath it. And as I say, I can be influenced by more knowledge, but I'm just going about the little kids and what I have seen and what they seem to enjoy. And it's little kids and their little bare legs and they're falling down, and I'm not sure that prickly stuff would please them.
Thanks, Mrs. Sylvester, appreciate that. Any other comments? Public comment section. Hearing none, going on.
Hi. What about getting a shade on top of the playground like they do in Riviera Beach, the little triangle, just over a couple of the slide? It's really hot on them.
No, that was something that was actually Commissioner Trepeppi's desire many years ago, but we didn't have the funding at the time to do it. It kind of got waylaid. It's something we can certainly consider again and prioritize in future budget talks. But I agree. It's when it's hot, and exactly. So something to consider. Was it 30 grand at the time? 30 grand? It's pretty
They sell them
expensive.
at Costco for a lot cheaper than that.
So while I have so many lovely people here, I would like to just formally tell you all I'm resigning as the POA president as of December 31st, and we need someone to take over this estimable organization. So since I have so many excellent candidates here, I've been calling a lot of people, talking to folks, but please think about it for yourself. Come and join us next Monday night to come talk about it. If you have a recommendation of somebody that you think would be good, give me a call, let me know. But we really need to come up with some new leadership for this organization. I've been doing it for 3 years, that's long enough, so help me out. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other comments? Going once, going twice, closing public comments, and with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Meeting adjourned.